My fiancée's dad took me out for last-minute shopping and said, "You're not good enough for her, walk away, or I'll destroy you." I didn't argue. I hired a pie the next morning. A week before the wedding, I sent him footage of his affair with a 19-year-old. Then I texted my fiancée, "Ask your dad why I'm not showing up." I heard she collapsed at the altar. Her dad hasn't been seen since. Sarah and I had been together for 3 years. We met in college, both studying business, and just clicked immediately. She was smart, funny, beautiful, and came from what I thought was a perfect family. Her dad, Richard, was this successful real estate mogul in our city, owned half the commercial properties downtown, drove a Mercedes, lived in a mansion in the hills. Classic American success story, or so it seemed. Sarah's mom, Linda, was the quintessential socialite. Always perfectly dressed, always smiling, always hosting charity events. They seemed like the ideal family from the outside, and Sarah adored her parents, especially her dad. She talked about him like he hung the moon, how he built his business from nothing, how he always made time for family despite his busy schedule, how he was her hero. I, on the other hand, came from a decidedly middle-class background. My dad was a mechanic, my mom was a teacher. We weren't poor, but we weren't rich either. I worked my ass off through college, graduated with honors, and landed a decent job at a marketing firm. I was making good money, enough to support a family, but nothing compared to Richard's wealth. Sarah never cared about the money difference. She loved me for me, not my bank account. But I always sensed some tension from her parents, especially Richard. He was polite enough when we were together, but there was always this underlying current of judgment, I guess. Like I was temporary. Like I was just some phase Sarah was going through before she came to her senses and married someone from their social circle. The proposal. When I decided to propose, I did everything right. I asked Richard for his blessing first, old school, but I knew it would matter to Sarah. The conversation was awkward as hell. He didn't say no, but he didn't exactly say yes either. Just gave me this look and said, "I hope you know what you're getting into, son." I should have paid more attention to that comment. Sarah said yes, of course. We were over the moon, started planning this big wedding that, honestly, was way more elaborate than anything I would have chosen. But Sarah wanted the fairy tale, and her parents were footing most of the bill, so I went along with it. 200 plus guests, country club venue, the works. The planning process was tense. Richard kept making these little comments about costs, about how some people weren't used to this level of sophistication, about how important it was that Sarah marry someone who could maintain her lifestyle. Sarah would shut him down every time, but it was clear he was trying to plant seeds of doubt. The shopping trip. Fast forward to 2 weeks before the wedding. Everything was planned, invitations sent, deposits paid. I was stressed about money, even with their help. My portion of the wedding costs was stretching me thin, but I was happy. Sarah was happy. We were about to start our lives together. Then Richard called me on a Thursday evening. Said he needed to take me shopping for some last-minute wedding stuff, cufflinks, maybe a new tie, some other accessories. Father-in-law bonding time, he called it. Sarah thought it was sweet that he was making an effort. I should have known something was up when he picked me up in his car instead of meeting somewhere. Should have been suspicious when he drove us to the expensive part of town, to this high-end men's store where everything cost more than my monthly rent. But I was trying to be optimistic. Maybe he was finally warming up to me. Maybe this was his way of welcoming me into the family. We spent about an hour looking at accessories. He bought me a pair of cufflinks that probably cost more than my car payment. We were walking back to his car when he suddenly stopped in this empty parking garage. "We need to talk," he said. The whole energy shifted. His friendly demeanor dropped like a mask, and suddenly I was looking at a completely different person. Cold eyes, hard expression, the kind of look that probably scared the crap out of his business rivals. "You seem like a nice enough kid," he started, "but you're not right for Sarah. This whole thing is a mistake." I tried to keep it light. "Richard, I love your daughter. We're good together. I know we come from different backgrounds, but..." He cut me off. "It's not about backgrounds. It's about reality. You think you can provide for her? You think you can give her the life she deserves? You're living in a fantasy. I make good money. We'll be fine." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Good money? Son, I spend more on wine in a month than you make in 3. Sarah has never wanted for anything in her life. You think she's going to be happy clipping coupons and shopping at Target? She's not like that. She doesn't care about the money. She doesn't care about money because she's never had to. Wait until the novelty wears off. Wait until she realizes what she gave up to be with you." I was getting angry, but I tried to stay calm. "Look, I get that you want the best for Sarah, but this is her choice. She loves me, and I love her. Isn't that what matters?" That's when his whole demeanor changed. The fake civility disappeared completely. "No, son. What matters is that I'm not going to watch my daughter throw her life away on some middle-class nobody who thinks love is enough. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to call off this wedding. You're going to tell Sarah that you realized you two are too different, that you want different things. Make it sound like your idea." "I'm not going to do that." He stepped closer. "Yes, you are. Because if you don't, I will destroy you. I will make your life a living hell. I will get you fired from that little marketing job. I will make sure you never work in this city again. I will ruin your credit, your reputation, everything. I have the money and the connections to make you disappear, and trust me, I will use them. I stared at him, trying to process what I was hearing. This man, who I'd been trying to win over for 3 years, was threatening to destroy my entire life if I didn't walk away from his daughter. And if you think about telling Sarah about this conversation, he continued, don't. She won't believe you. She thinks I'm perfect, remember? Besides, even if she did believe you, what's she going to choose? Her family's money and support, or a lifetime of struggling with someone who couldn't even stand up to her father? He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. There's $50,000 in here. Take it and disappear. Start over somewhere else. Or don't take it and get destroyed here. Your choice. I looked at the envelope, then back at his face. He was completely serious. This wasn't an empty threat, this was a man who was used to getting his way, who had the resources to back up his words. What's it going to be, son? Here's the thing about ultimatums, they only work if the person you're threatening actually backs down. Richard had done his homework on me, knew about my finances, my job, my background. What he didn't know was that I had a stubborn streak a mile wide and a very specific set of skills when it came to research and investigation. See, before I got into marketing, I actually worked for a private investigation firm during college. Nothing glamorous, mostly insurance fraud cases and background checks, but I learned how to dig into people's lives, how to find information they didn't want found. I looked Richard straight in the eye and said, I need some time to think about this. He smiled, thinking he'd won. Smart man. You have until Monday to make the call to Sarah. I took the envelope. Not because I was going to take the money, but because I wanted him to think he'd won. I wanted him to get comfortable, to think he was in control. Big mistake on his part. The investigation. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept replaying the conversation, getting angrier and angrier. Who the hell did he think he was? What kind of man threatens to destroy someone for loving his daughter? But underneath the anger, I was thinking. Richard was confident, maybe too confident. People that confident usually have something to hide. And people with something to hide make mistakes. Friday morning, I called in sick to work and started making some calls. I still had contacts from my Pi days, including my old boss, Marcus, who now ran his own firm. I told him I needed a favor, background check on Richard Morrison, the real estate guy. Marcus laughed. That's going to cost you. Morrison's got lawyers up the ass. What's he done? Threatened to destroy my life if I don't break up with his daughter. Ah, one of those. Yeah, we can dig. Give me a week. I don't have a week. I need something by Monday. Rush job's going to cost extra. I don't care. Just find me something. Marcus called back Friday afternoon. Your future father-in-law is clean as a whistle on paper. No criminal record, no lawsuits, business is legitimate. But I've got a guy who does surveillance. He's been watching Morrison for another client, some business rival trying to get dirt for a hostile takeover. He's got some interesting footage from the past few months. What kind of footage? The kind that might interest a man whose wedding is about to get derailed. You want to see it? I met Marcus at his office an hour later. He showed me the footage on his computer, surveillance video from various locations around the city. Richard going into upscale hotels. Richard meeting with a young woman at coffee shops, restaurants, bars. Richard and this same young woman going into what looked like an apartment building together. Who is she? I asked. Marcus pulled up a file. Name's Jessica Chen. 19 years old, freshman at the university. Works part-time at one of Morrison's properties, that new office complex downtown. 19. Jesus Christ. How long has this been going on? Based on what we have here, at least 6 months. Maybe longer. I stared at the screen, watching this man who had threatened to destroy me for not being good enough for his daughter while he was screwing around with someone barely older than a teenager. I need more, I said. What kind of more? I need video. Clear video. Inside the apartment if possible. Marcus shook his head. That's going to be expensive and risky. We're talking about breaking and entering, invasion of privacy. If we get caught, how much? He quoted me a number that made my stomach drop. It was basically all the money I had saved for the honeymoon plus the cash Richard had given me. Do it. The evidence. Marcus and his team worked over the weekend. I spent Saturday and Sunday trying to act normal around Sarah, which was nearly impossible. She could tell something was wrong, kept asking if I was getting cold feet about the wedding. Just stressed about money, I told her, which wasn't entirely a lie. Daddy offered to help with more of the costs, she said. He really likes you, you know. He told Mom he thinks you're good for me. I almost choked on my coffee. Monday morning, Marcus called. We got it. Got what? Everything. Video, audio, photos. Your boy Richard is definitely having an affair with this girl. We got footage of them in her apartment, hotel rooms, even in his office after hours. It's all there. Audio too? Oh yeah. Including a conversation where he tells her he's going to get rid of his son-in-law problem soon, that his daughter will be free to marry someone more appropriate once he handles you. My blood went cold. He talked about me? Yep. Apparently, he's got quite the plan to destroy your life. Also mentioned something about having done this before with Sarah's previous boyfriend. Guy named Mike? Apparently, Mike got the same treatment you did, except he took the money and ran. Sarah had told me about Mike. Said he'd broken up with her out of nowhere, claimed they were too different, moved to another state for a job opportunity. She'd been heartbroken. Now I knew the truth. There's more, Marcus continued. We did some digging into his business practices. Your future father-in-law has been playing fast and loose with some zoning regulations, bribing city officials, threatening tenants who don't pay fast enough. Nothing we can prove in court, but enough to make his life very uncomfortable if it got out. Send me everything. The plan. I had 6 days until the wedding. 6 days to figure out how to handle this nuclear bomb I was now sitting on. My first instinct was to go straight to Sarah, tell her everything, show her the evidence. But then I realized that would just be playing into Richard's hands. He'd already positioned it so that anything I said would look like desperate lies from someone trying to break up her family. No, I needed to be smarter than that. I spent Monday night planning. Richard wanted to destroy me? Fine. But I was going to destroy him first, and I was going to do it in a way that left no doubt about who the real villain was. Tuesday, I started making copies of everything. USB drives, cloud storage, printed photos, the works. I wanted multiple backups in case Richard somehow got to the originals. Wednesday, I researched the legal implications. What I had was definitely enough to destroy Richard's marriage and probably his business relationships, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't opening myself up to lawsuits. Thursday, I set up anonymous email accounts and untraceable methods for delivering the evidence. Friday, exactly 1 week before the wedding, I put my plan into action. The reveal. I started with Linda, Sarah's mom. I sent her an anonymous email with a selection of the photos and videos, along with a note, thought you should know what your husband has been doing while you plan your daughter's wedding. Then I sent a more comprehensive package to the local newspaper's investigative reporter, the one who'd been sniffing around Richard's business practices for months. I included the affair evidence plus everything Marcus had dug up about the zoning violations and bribery. I sent copies to the district attorney's office, the city planning commission, and several of Richard's biggest business rivals. But the coup de grace was what I sent to Richard himself. I had the videos edited into a highlight reel, Richard and Jessica in various compromising positions, audio of their conversations about me and about Mike, everything. I burned it onto a DVD and had it delivered to his office with a note, you said you'd destroy me if I didn't walk away. But I think you're the one who's about to be destroyed. Check your email. The email contained everything. Photos, videos, audio files, business documents, the works. Along with a simple message, you have 24 hours to tell Sarah the truth about who you really are, or I will. I didn't hear back from him. The wedding day. Saturday morning, I woke up and checked my phone. 17 missed calls from Sarah, 12 from her mom, 5 from various wedding vendors. The first voicemail from Sarah was hysterical crying. How could you do this? How could you send this to my mother? She's destroyed. My family is destroyed. How could you? The next few were angry. You're a coward. You're vindictive and cruel and I never want to see you again. Then confused. I don't understand why you're doing this. If you wanted to call off the wedding, you could have just talked to me. The last one was just sobbing. Linda's messages were a mix of thanking me for opening her eyes and cursing me for destroying her family. I'd expected this. I knew that initially, they'd blame me for bringing the truth to light rather than blaming Richard for his actions. But I also knew that once the shock wore off, they'd realize who the real villain was. I got dressed and drove to the country club anyway. Not to go through with the wedding, obviously, but because I needed to see this through to the end. The parking lot was chaos. Wedding guests standing around in their formal wear, looking confused. Vendors trying to figure out what to do with flowers and food and music equipment. I spotted Sarah near the entrance, still in her wedding dress, surrounded by her bridesmaids. She looked destroyed. Part of me felt terrible for putting her through this, but I reminded myself that this wasn't my fault. This was Richard's fault. I walked up to her group. The bridesmaids immediately formed a protective circle, but Sarah saw me and broke through. How could you? She screamed, loud enough that everyone in the parking lot turned to look. How could you destroy my family like this? I didn't destroy your family, I said quietly. Your dad did that all by himself. You sent those horrible videos to my mother. You ruined my parents' marriage. You ruined everything. Your dad has been cheating on your mom for months with a teenager barely older than you. He threatened to destroy my life if I didn't walk away from you. He did the same thing to Mike. Your family was already destroyed, I just exposed it. You're lying. Sarah, you've seen the evidence. You know I'm not lying. She broke down then, collapsing onto the ground in her wedding dress. Her bridesmaids rushed to help her, shooting me death glares. Where is he? I asked Linda, who had appeared beside us. Gone, she said, her voice hollow. Packed a bag and left this morning. His lawyer called an hour ago saying he's not admitting to anything and we should prepare for a messy divorce. The aftermath. That was 6 months ago. Here's what happened since. Richard never came back. Turns out he'd been planning his exit strategy for a while, had money hidden in offshore accounts, a second passport, the works. He's supposedly living in Costa Rica now, though no one knows for sure. The newspaper ran a series of investigative articles about his business practices. The DA opened an investigation. Several of his properties were seized, and the whole real estate empire he'd built collapsed pretty much overnight. Linda filed for divorce and got most of what was left of his assets. She's actually doing better now, started her own interior design business and seems happier than I'd ever seen her. Sarah was a mess for months. She blamed me for everything at first, but eventually, as more details came out about her dad's other shady dealings, she started to understand that I wasn't the villain in this story. She called me about 3 months ago. Apologized for how she'd reacted, said she understood why I'd done what I did. Asked if we could try to work things out. I told her no. It wasn't about revenge or anger anymore. It was about realizing that we'd built our entire relationship on a foundation of lies, her father's lies, her family's lies, even some of my own lies about how much his disapproval bothered me. She deserved someone who could love her without all that baggage. And I deserved someone who wouldn't blame me for defending myself against threats. Jessica, the girl Richard was having an affair with, came forward after the story broke. Turns out she hadn't known he was married at first, and when she found out, he'd convinced her he was getting divorced. She was just a kid who got manipulated by a powerful older man. She transferred schools and is doing better now. As for me? I'm doing fine. I left that marketing job and started my own consulting firm. Turns out having brought down Richard Morrison on my reputation actually helped more than it hurt. People figured if I could outmaneuver him, I must be pretty good at what I do. I'm dating someone new now. Her name's Amy, she's a teacher, and she comes from a normal family with normal problems. Her dad grilled me about my intentions for exactly 10 minutes before deciding I was okay and offering me a beer. It's much better this way. Reflection. Do I regret what I did? Sometimes. Not the exposing Richard part. He was a predator who destroyed lives for his own convenience, and he deserved everything that happened to him. But I do regret that Sarah got caught in the crossfire. She didn't deserve to have her wedding day ruined. She didn't deserve to have her family implode. She didn't deserve to discover that her hero father was actually a monster. But here's the thing, all of that was going to happen eventually anyway. Richard's house of cards was always going to collapse. His affair was going to come out. His business practices were going to catch up with him. His treatment of the men in Sarah's life was going to escalate until he did something that couldn't be covered up. I just controlled the timing. Some people have called me vindictive. Others have called me a hero. I think the truth is somewhere in between. I'm just a guy who got tired of being pushed around and decided to push back. Richard thought he could destroy me because I wasn't rich enough or connected enough to fight back. He was wrong. Money and connections are powerful, but they're not everything. Sometimes, the truth is more powerful than both. And sometimes, when someone threatens to destroy you, the best defense is a good offense. I never did cash that $50,000 check, by the way. I kept it as a reminder that some things can't be bought. Update, Sarah texted me yesterday. Her mom is getting remarried, to her divorce lawyer, of all people. Sarah says she's never seen Linda happier. The wedding is going to be small, just family and close friends. Sarah asked if I wanted to come. I told her I'd think about it. Maybe some stories do have happy endings after all. Just not the ones we expect.